runs my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello everyone and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host and we're discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 56th year of the award at the 60th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1987. Today's guest is appearing for the second time. You last heard them talking about When Magoo Flew and the nominees of 1954. Please welcome back Luke Gill. Hello, Luke.
Hello, it's me. I'm back.
You're gonna do that voice the entire time?
No.
Okay. So this is a kind of special episode because we're recording live with the studio audience.
Wow, yeah!
I'm kidding. There's no studio audience, but I am here in person with Luke. It's like, we're just hanging out randomly, and it's like, hey, it turns out that your episode's coming up, so you thought might as well just do it in person, just for fun.
Yeah.
And so, back to the podcast. Remind us, what is your familiarity with the best animated short, animated short category?
Well, with the category, it's kind of one of those things where I'd say it's, in terms of, like, Academy Awards, it's probably some of the stuff that I'm most familiar with, like, from a younger age, because, you know, we all watched, like, the Pixar and Disney shorts when we were younger that were nominated in some of these categories. So I have, like, a long history in that sense. But, you know, the longer I've went on with my life and I've appreciated animation even more, I've kind of been finding all these shorts as well and kind of been enjoying them in their own sense. So being a part of this podcast has been fun, especially for the last time that I was on here, which was a lot of shorts from the 50s that I hadn't seen before. And this year also is stuff I haven't seen before either.
Yeah. And to add to your knowledge, before we recorded, I also showed you two shorts, not from this year, where I showed you The Big Snit and The House That Jack Built. Both very different short films and very in quality as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have a wider range than most people who come on this podcast. Well, there's some people who come on a lot that have seen everything. But in terms of the normal people, you do know more. But yeah, let's just get into this year's nominees. Our first nominee and the year's winner is The Man Who Planted Trees, directed by Frederick Back. This is Back's second win of 3 nominations, making him the 7th person to win multiple awards in this category. And only one other person, Nick Park, will accomplish this feat after him. When we last discussed him in regards to his first Oscar win, Crack, we went through his directorial filmography, and I mentioned that next time we would discuss his personal life, so let's get into that. I mentioned in the first Back episode his birth in Saarbrücken and moving to Strasbourg, France when he was young. His autobiography, which I wish I could just buy a copy of instead of having to navigate his defunct website through the Wayback Machine, has so much stuff about his early life, talking about his early interest in drawing, his relationship with his parents, with extra note paid to his father's interest in music, as well as the rise of fascism in Europe. He moved to Paris in 1937 to study art, but ended up moving to Brittany during the war. It wasn't long until the Germans had occupied all of France, and wasn't long until after that the Allies came in and saved them. After the war, Bach took an interest in Canadian life and wanted to move there, though found pushback as he wasn't deemed as useful, just a mere artist. However, he had applied to a pen pal program and ended up talking with Guylaine Paquin, a teacher whom Bach found instantly interesting. They kept up their correspondence for 2 years until 1948. He had found a way to get himself to Canada. Selling a few paintings and not even bothering to get a visa, Bach made his way to Canada and arranged to meet with her. And she had arranged everything to make sure he would be able to stay in Canada. And it was only 3 days later that he asked her to marry him. And she said, perhaps. Reading through the autobiography, the way he talks about Guylaine, there's such a clear love and admiration for her. It's so romantic, truly. Anyway, he and Guylaine ended up having 3 children together, Christian, Suzelle, and Francis. And next time we discuss Bach, now that we've gone through his films and his life, we'll look at his life after he leaves filmmaking in 1993. So, back to the short. Bach was first drawn towards The Man Who Planted Trees due to his own environmentalism. Again, Everything that Bach makes ties back to his environmentalism. Bach himself had planted over 30,000 trees in his efforts to combat deforestation. He says, usually an animation film moves at a brisk pace, with frequent situation shifts, gags, and themes that are preferably outside reality. This subject called rather for a certain dignity, but I was convinced that animation, even when given greater realism, was the best way to touch a wide audience and to give the story a look distinct from that of a documentary. The Man Who Planted Trees is based on a book by Jean Genot and features narration either in French by Philippe Noyer or in English by Christopher Plummer. The film is also featured on the list of top 50 animated shorts as ranked by animators and is likely Frederick Bach's most famous film. It tells the story of a shepherd who goes around and plants trees in a desolate wasteland, which unfortunately turns out to be France. The shepherd plants 100 acorns in the earth every day, and through his life sees a vast forest grow around him. I want to leave us with this line about the film from Bach's website. The seeds that the shepherd plants are the symbol of all our actions, good and bad, which have far-reaching consequences we can scarcely imagine. It is up to us to think and act in accordance with our hopes for the future, and if possible, to leave behind us a world more beautiful and promising than the one we inherited. Luke, start us off. What did you think of The Man Who Planted Trees?
So it's one I've been meaning to watch for a while because of like its notoriety, and is one of those few instances where the notoriety actually is very much warranted because the thing itself is just insanely beautiful, both like visuals and from a thematic standpoint. And I'd say like to me it kind of reminds me very much of like something like Loving Vincent, where it has like a very painterly, like trying to like emulate like already existing paintings, but the thing is rather than like just outwardly just being like this is trying to be like a painting that already exists, it is very much its own beautiful creation that uses like the aesthetics to such a great degree. But it's hard to put into words how beautiful this thing is. It's like insane to me.
Yeah, it's like, so the film is like, it's 30 minutes long, first of all. It's one of the longest films nominated, if not the longest thus far. And it's just like 30 minutes. It's clearly based on a book because you have like Christopher Plummer's narration throughout. But, oh my God. Frederick Bach, I know you haven't seen his other films, but all his films are just so gorgeous. And this is probably one of the most visually interesting, along with his last winner, Crack, that's what it's called. Crack, and also All Nothing, his other nominee thus far. It's just like he's constantly just giving these gorgeous, gorgeous visuals that just entrance you and take you into this other world. And it is just a sight to behold. And I wonder, I didn't look up like what exactly the materials used for his animation art. It looks kind of like charcoal, but not really, like maybe a chalk or something. I'm not as much of an expert as I seem, so it's like I can't really tell just based on visuals alone. But it is astounding, and there's all these sequences that just wow you with just the way they move and morph and everything. And it's like in the copy we watched, those especially beautiful moments were clouded by the digital artifacts of it. And after we watched it, we found out that there was a 4K version right next to it on the search bar, but we didn't watch that one.
Yeah, we had I think we both agreed that we thought it was like a reading of like the book or whatever story it was based on rather than like the short film, and then we saw 4K full film English and we were like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, we should have just watched it. Oh, we didn't. But still, it's like even in that shitty like 240p quality, it is still just gorgeous. Yeah, so it shows just the intense beauty of this film.
Mm-hmm. And to me, like it's interesting because like you mentioned the environmentalism that was sort of part of Bach's life, and it kind of makes it's like a basic thought when you think of an animation, but like it reminded me of like Miyazaki's like approach to like nature and like how deeply like interconnected that is to like the themes and the story and the visuals, and like here it's kind of like even more so because of how like stripped back the visual aesthetic is, because like when you look at it, it's not so much like beautiful because it's like every single like color or like intense like movement. Is more so because of like the minimalism in certain areas that like give this sort of haziness and like dreamlike quality to it, because like again, when we were mentioning like the digital artifacts, like in some areas it didn't really take away from the film because like there was already this haziness to it. That being said, anytime it did do a wide shot, it was basically a bunch of squares.
Yeah, when it was like a particularly busy or something, it just crapped out, which it's just something you deal with sometimes, especially with this category. It's just like sometimes the only uploads are like just the worst quality. Like I remember for one of the winners, I forget the actual name of it, but it's like the person who was always right or something like that. It's just like the only version available online is like a cam recorded version of like a film strip being projected, and it's just like it is low quality, but it's like you can get what's going on at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, this film, and it's like I brought up and you brought up me bringing up his environmentalism, and it's like it's important to emphasize that every single film that Frederick Back has made is about environmentalism. Everything this is like his most defining trait, more so than him being an animator or artist or anything. And it's just like, and especially like I know like after he stopped doing films, it's like he joined like some environmental group. I think it was like Greenpeace or something like that. And it's just like he truly has devoted his whole life to like helping the world, helping the environment. And so it makes sense that he would be drawn to this film about a guy who devotes his whole life to planting trees, and like the whole thing at the end and is like oh, and he has lived such a beautiful life because he found his destiny to do things, and it's just like it's
found happiness through it as well.
He has become like God in his help of nature or whatever.
Yeah, and then Back was like, he just like me for real.
he just like me for real. I want to be like him.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but God, yeah. We keep saying this, but it's such a beautiful film. It is. Honestly, I want to say like this is one of the most beautiful films like nominated, but there's a lot of films that are just really beautiful. Like just a few years ago, there was this film called Paradise, and it combines all these different animation techniques to create this extremely detailed, extremely colorful, just gorgeous world. And there's this like palace in it where it's just like it's made out of like I forget the term. It's like pinpoints or like dots of light, just like building this whole fucking palace, and it is insane. I'll have to show it to you right after we finish recording this. But it is amazing. But yeah, in a category with a lot of beautiful stuff, this does still stand out as like something extremely beautiful.
Yeah, I'd say like it's one of those things where, like as you were saying, the animated short category has sort of that like variety of like visuals, like more so than the animated feature category probably does most of the time. But the thing I think that I appreciate even more so about the animation and something like this is its like pacing, because you're saying it's like the longest entry probably in the history of the category maybe, and it made me think about a lot of the choices that you would usually have for animation like that, which is to sort of like make it a concise, like get through with it, done with it kind of like funnel like package. But like with this, it's like the pacing is as integral as the visuals are, and there's a time for these like moments to sort of like breathe and have atmosphere and a real sense of like the weight and motion behind it. Because it made me think of like when Guillermo del Toro was like doing Pinocchio, he talked about like creating animation that wasn't just like stances or postures. It was more so like actually like letting movement sort of breathe for itself in a way that was like naturalistic and not just like, you know, utility essentially. Whereas like this one, there's a lot of times when like emotion will just kind of like go on for a while in order to sort of like let the feeling kind of wash over you. And I really appreciate that, because I was like thinking about how you would do that with like 2D animation versus something like stop motion, which like Pinocchio was.
Yeah, it's a film that is very deliberately paced, and I want to say that so I've seen all these films before, And on my first watch of this, I thought this was just dreadfully boring. I thought it was just went on and on forever, and that the narration was so droning. But on this watch, I do appreciate it more. I do really, really love this film. I think it is, God, it like you're saying, it is just such an emotionally like filling movie, and it's just a lot. I understand now why it is hailed like as one of the greatest short films ever. I think like on like the Letterboxd list of like highest rated animated shorts ever, or short films even, it is up there.
Yeah, and that was like the thing is like before I even watched it, that was sort of what I knew about it, was like, it's like one of the best animated short films ever. And again, like going into it, I was kind of like, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
How good could it really be? And then you watch it and you're like, that's why.
That's how good it is.
And I think like for me, I think it's also just kind of interesting because like a lot of films, when they try to do something that's like kind of almost like decade spanning, kind of in this epic scope, it would be like a long movie. But like this thing's only like 30 minutes, so like not really like that long in comparison to that, but like still is able to get across that sense of scope just because of the fact that it's like a 30-minute animated short. And I really appreciate that because like it also kind of like it's not so much just like the pacing of like individual scenes, but it's just like the whole pacing of like the piece itself becomes like a character into like the passage of time, when it's like addressing like how the forest kind of changes the space into something that is somewhat unrecognizable but like still inviting and comforting by the end of it. And it is interesting. It's also interesting to get the context of back right now, because it's like that makes a lot of the meaning of like stuff that happens in the short make a lot more sense now. It's like, that wasn't just like, like just a detail to put in a period of time. It's like, no, that has like some semblance of emotional importance to the creator of this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of me wanted to like tell you about like his whole story like before watching the film, but I was like, nah, I'll just let you go into it blind and just like, and then tell you about it as we're recording the podcast to see how it makes everything click. And it's just like, and I think that's part of the fun of my podcast, because it's like most of the time it's like even the guests who've seen everything, they don't know anything about these filmmakers. So it's like I'm the one who puts in the research and everything. It's like, hey, here's some fun facts about this.
The more you know.
Yeah. And so like for me, it's like I do the research before I watch them, so it's like it contextualizes my viewing of it. And meanwhile, for someone like you or for any of my guests, it's like they just watch the film and then I tell them like, here's how this connects to everything else. And it's like, okay. And so I think it can sometimes help my viewing of it. And so maybe one of the problems is that like them not knowing about it can sometimes detriment them. But also I was in that same position before. I had seen all these films without knowing pretty much anything about these filmmakers. Of course, except for, the big ones like Chuck Jones and of course Pixar and everything. Yeah. But outside of that, it's just like, this is why I do this podcast. It's to educate. It's to get these stories told. And it's just like, and for someone like Frederick Back, who is like this incredibly important filmmaker who has this rich, full life, it's like, it's nice to, tell it. It's nice to, though, again, as I said earlier, I wish his fucking autobiography was more accessible. It's so awful to navigate it through the Wayback Machine, because like half the links are broken, and it's just like it takes forever to load. I need to like, one day I just need to go through it and just copy and paste everything into a Word document or something and post that somewhere, just so like it can be preserved in a way that isn't awful.
Remember, kids, piracy is an ethical action.
Like, this is about preservation.
Yeah. And also, like, I feel like there's also, as you were just talking about, like, I think it's also good to just research, like, if you like a thing, to research the people who made it, because it can give you even greater appreciation for it. Because, like, just a little detail, like knowing who Buck was before making this can, or even afterwards, can kind of give you like a better sense of like the intent of the piece, more so than just like, as I was watching this, I was like, yeah, obviously an environmentalist message, but then there's like more deeper meaning behind it with context. And it's like, Man, it's almost like research gives you a better wealth of knowledge about thematic intent and shit made before you were born.
Who'd have thunk?
Who would have fucking thought, man? What a concept.
Yeah. Everybody, just go research Frederick Beck. Go to his website, or go to the Wayback Machine to his website, and just try to read his fucking autobiography as best you can, if you want. And make sure you go to the English version if you speak English, because there's also the French version, and it's just like, but also the French version has more of it saved for some reason, probably because he is like French Canadian. He's from Quebec, or he's not from Quebec. He moved there. I said all of this.
Lives in Quebec.
He lived in Quebec ever since he moved there, and lived there for pretty much his whole life after that point. But yeah. Go look up his autobiography, or wait until I get it all into a readable format. Either way.
There may be a link under this episode later on in the future. Who knows?
It won't be that soon.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It'll probably be years if I ever get around. Actually, I feel like I might do, so after the animated short section, I'm going to, just spread out into just, any fucking short films I feel like talking about. So I might do, a Frederick Beck episode. Ooh. And then maybe for that point, I'll just be like, okay, let's just fucking do this. Let's just copy everything.
I like that idea. I think that'd be a fun idea.
But yeah, anything else you'd like to say about Man Who Planted Trees?
It's really hard for me to say anything substantial that isn't just this is a deeply beautiful film and everyone should watch it. So instead, I'm just going to say The Man Who Planted These Nuts. Shut up. I'm sorry, I had to.
Actually, I did think of one more thing. So we haven't mentioned the narrator at all.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
We've just been talking about the shepherd, the guy who actually plants these fucking trees. But there's a whole other guy who's just kind of like an audience surrogate, because he's just wandering through this fucking desert and then comes up and the guy is like, yo, can I stay with you? He's like,
Yes.
No, the shepherd's whole thing is that he doesn't say much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
makes him cool.
And then it keeps coming back to visit the guy as he's planting all these trees and everything's growing and all that. He sees him throughout his life. And it's just like, do you think he's gay for the shepherd?
It's my reading, but I'm also biased in that reading, and that I'm a queer myself, so who knows? I don't know if probably not Fred Bach's intent with that, but I'm still gonna take that reading of it because fuck you, I can watch your work and add my own intake.
There's nothing gay about two guys just looking at wood together.
Yeah, just guys being dudes out in the woods with nobody else.
It's just you, me, your dog, your 40 sheep, and this well.
It's just us two guys and an endless wood with nothing else to do.
The 100-acre wood with Winnie the Pooh and friends.
I'm just imagining a scene where the main character's like, man, we planted so many trees. Is there anything else to do but trees? And then the shepherd just turns around and is like, yes.
Bees.
Bees. Yes, bees.
I actually, on that point, we both thought it was really funny how when the guy comes back and sees the shepherd again, he gets rid of most of his sheep in favor of bees because the sheep were eating the trees or whatever, ruining them. And so he just fucking doesn't have most of his sheep anymore, and he's on bees now.
Yeah, he and again, it doesn't say anything about what he did with the sheep, so it's probably that he slaughtered them and use their wool or something like that. Yeah. But I just like the very just. You got rid of the sheep, and what are you doing now? He's like, bees.
Where do you get the bees from?
I don't know. Fucking maybe they found some bees in one of the trees.
I brought up Winnie the Pooh, and now he's he stuck his head in an eye trying to get some money. It's oh, there's bees in here. This
is not the point of that joke, but I'm now just imagining fucking the shepherd versus Winnie the Pooh in the woods.
Yeah, instead of making fucking Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, we just need to do these fucking crossover events with Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh versus the shepherd from Man Who Planted Trees.
Winnie the Pooh invades like really niche, like beautiful art house, like animated shorts.
It's like that one scene that I haven't seen this movie, but it's the scene from Looney Tunes Back in Action where they're in the art museum and you just go from two different paintings, except it's like Winnie the Pooh going to different animated shorts, different Oscar nominees for animated short. And just beating them up because he wants to prove his right as the best animated short winner. Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day won in 1968.
Oh, good for him. Yeah. That would be funny, though.
It is Walt Disney's last win, his posthumous win.
Ah, fair enough. Well, at least he died on a high note.
Fuck yourself, Walt Disney.
Go, eat my farts, Walt Disney. You communist-hating fuck.
And on that note, let's go on to our second nominee, which is George and Rosemary, directed by David Snowden and Alison Fine. Wait, or is it David Fine, Alison Snowden? I might have typed that wrong. Anyway.
It's directed by Edward Snowden.
No, not Edward Snowden. I'm just going to quickly look up just so I could make sure I get their names right for the rest of this.
Fair enough.
Because I was pretty sure it's Alison Snowden and David Fine. I don't know why I wrote it down like that.
Fair enough.
Anyway, it's like how I always mix up Mulder and Scully from X-Files.
Yeah.
Or I actually always called them Sculder and Molly. Not even on purpose. It's always an accent.
Sounds like an 80s villain.
Sculder and Molly.
Yeah.
It is. They're trying to get the moose and squirrel. Anyway, this is the second nomination for producer Eunice McCauley, who previously won for Special Delivery in 1978. This is also the second nominee directed by Alison Snowden, the last one being Second Class Mail, though she went unnominated this time. And this is the 20th nomination for the National Film Board of Canada. Lots of big names when it comes to this category here. So David and Alison met at the National Film and Television School in London. While there, David, a Canadian, introduced Alison to the animated short films of the NFB. And it was, in fact, these short films that made Snowden interested in animation to begin with, as she was mainly focused on live-action work up to that point. And from there, ended up making Second Class Mail. Then, once they graduated from school, to move to Canada together, and lo and behold, ended up getting hired by the NFB. That's as much story as I can gather up to this point. Got to save some of it for their other nominations. So, to the short at hand, George and Rosemary is about an elderly man, George, who is infatuated with the woman who lives across the street, Rosemary. He desperately wants to ask her out, though keeps chickening out. So, something you might not gather from that plot summary is that George is a creep. He has these binoculars that he's looking at Rosemary with. If he looks through her window all the time, he has these elaborate fantasies of them together, or they're dancing, or they're like opera characters, or things like that. And the big twist of the movie is that Rosemary's also a fucking pervert, and she's been doing the exact same shit with him this whole time, and that's why the short is so good. That's why it's so adorable. Because it is creepy, but they're both creepy, so it's okay. And it's cute. It's funny. It's like I love the animation style. I love the Snowden and Fine style of animation. But yeah, I was going to like counteract that, but no, there's nothing to counteract. It's just I like this. It's cute. It's got good animation. What's not to love?
It's not to love. That's all you need in life, really.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this quite a bit too. This was, I think, the only short that I didn't have some semblance of like either knowledge of the film itself or like the people making it. So it was kind of going into a new territory with this one, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I will say, when I was watching this, I couldn't help but think this gives me the same vibe as Doug, that the like 90s Nickelodeon cartoon, for anyone who doesn't know what that is. But like is interesting because, like, as you were saying, the whole joke of this is that they're both creeps in a way, and I at first was like, is this really going to be doing this for the entire short? But once it gets to the punchline at the end, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But It's kind of funny though, because like it feels like it falls into a category that I can think of for like animated shorts as like comically inept like guys trying to find a way to ask someone out. and that seems to be like a thing, especially for like animated shorts. It's like that sort of thing, which I can kind of see why, because like there's a lot of opportunities for like, you know, like the fantasy sequence has like some fun visuals and all that sort of thing, but it's just like, man, why are there so many of these? Why?
Yeah, so a long time ago, we had one of my previous guests, Gordon, we made this theory that every animated short falls into two categories. There is big guy versus little guy, and then there is sad guy playing music. This is very much sad guy playing music.
I'd say like that's how it kind of fits into it. And speaking of music, once the punchline hits that, like, she's also kind of like a peep, and you know, brings him into her house. There was a split second there where I wasn't sure where this was going, and when she played music, I was kind of thinking this was gonna turn into like a Dragon Tattoo torture sequence.
Reservoir Dogs.
Or Reservoir Dogs. And I was like, this is... I don't know why. This is... If I had a nickel for every time I thought there was an animated film that was going to suddenly turn into a torture sequence by playing music, I'd have 2 nickels, but it's weird that it happened twice.
What's the other one?
It's the most recent Spider-Man film.
Oh.
But
oh, yeah, at the ending.
Yeah.
We won't say any more in case any of you out there haven't seen it, even though this will come out in, like, August, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Bruce Willis is a ghost.
Bruce Willis is Luke Skywalker's father.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis is your father.
He's my father. Wow. But no, I enjoyed this one quite a bit, even though, like, again, like, when I heard like what it was, I was sort of like, we're doing this again sort of deal. But like, it's got a fun tone to it. It's got like nice, like, kind of it's got potent Doug vibes, and I appreciate it for that.
I like that you're emphasizing the Doug.
Yes. Again, that's the only thing I couldn't think of when I was looking at the art style.
Wait, is Doug Canadian? Like, is it a Canadian film or TV show?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I would totally believe it was Canadian, but I don't think it is.
Okay. It does have those Canadian vibes. Like, because this film is Canadian. It's like, actually, I haven't even really thought about how, like these NFB short films especially have influenced, like, a lot of the Canadian style TV shows that, you know, that a lot of kids watch on, like, Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, things like that. It's just like there's a through line there that I haven't even really thought about.
Yeah, like, I think you can definitely feel the influence that it probably has had by this point, because, yeah, it's like, when I say Doug vibes, I just generally mean, like, 90s, like, cartoon vibes, so, like, there is kind of, like, that through line of the possible influence that it has had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's also, like, the Eastern animation stuff that leads us to, like, Classic Chupo and things like that. It's just, like, everything gonna come together.
Yeah, it's like a big old collage of influences smashing together.
I like that we're both doing the Tenet hand symbol.
Yeah. This is called the animation Tenet. It's when you play the animation backwards and it's funny.
You know, maybe that would help Big Snit. Who knows? Probably.
Actually, I could see that helping Big Snit a bit.
All right. Anything else you like to say about George and Rosemary?
I'm happy for them.
Yeah, I'm happy they found each other and that they're both fucking freaks.
Yeah, mutual freakage.
I just want to say one thing, and I like that the name of these two characters are both famous Clooney's.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, like, that was the thing, like, that showed up on the search bar was George and Rosemary Clooney, and I was like, wait, what? What do you mean by that? and then I saw one of the videos that was on there. It was like, oh yeah, I guess there was. I don't think they intended on that being what it would be about, but you know, it's funny to think about. Yeah, they're just.
And also, Rosemary's name in the short is Rosemary Harris, and I got to tell you that's the name of an actress. That's the name of the person who played Aunt May in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans.
I'm glad Aunt May found someone.
Mm-hmm. Academy Award nominee Rosemary Harris. May she rest in peace. I think she's dead. I'm not entirely sure. She probably is, though.
If she's alive, she lives.
I'm sorry if you're alive, Rosemary Harris, but you're probably not listening to this.
Fair enough.
If one of you out there knows Rosemary Harris, send this to her just to prove me wrong.
Come on the podcast, Rosemary. We'd love to have you.
Again, if you are alive. Well, maybe if you're dead, we can find a way.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
Finds a way.
Our third and final nominee is Your Face, directed by Bill Plimpton. This is Bill Plimpton's first nomination, and yet again, we have a name that is rather famous in animation. He's directed plenty of short films, which are called his Plimptoons, a handful of feature films, music videos for the likes of Weird Al and Kanye West, and plenty of Simpsons couch gags. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Bill Plimpton has always had an artistic streak in him. He left to draw at a young age, joined his high school's art club. In college, he tried his hand at animation for the Film Society, only for him to accidentally shoot the whole thing upside down. And then, moving to New York, he began a career as a cartoonist and illustrator, selling his works to many, many newspapers and magazines. Then, in 1983, he was offered the opportunity to make a short film called Boomtown, with the producers holding his hand the whole way. Then he made another, this time on his own, Drawing Lesson Number 2. Then he made his third film, the one we're talking about today. He contacted a musician friend of his, Maureen McElherin, to score the film and sing as well. However, her voice was edited in the final mix. And from this film was when Plimpton's career really exploded, but we'll save that for the next time he comes up. For now, Your Face features a man singing the titular song as his face grotesquely morphs in unreal ways. Luke, what do you think of Your Face?
This is an odd thing to say, but like the energy that like permeates off of this short in particular gives me like cursed Garfield fan art vibes. I don't know why, but I think it's just because of how deeply unsettling like the body horror of this thing is at times.
Yes.
But it's also like it's not a body horror where you're just like looking in like utter fear. I was laughing the entire time because I'm like, I don't like that, but in positive sense.
Yeah, it is. It's a very simple short film. Like from the description, it's literally just he's singing the song as his face turns into a bunch of different shit, and this is actually really comparable to a few other nominees in this category, especially recently, where it's just like there's not really a singular joke. It's just something funny is happening for a few minutes and then it's over. And it's like, so we've talked about before The Great Cognito, which is a similar film about a man who's just telling jokes and his head is transforming into like the people he's impersonating and things like that, or different parts of his story. Or it's also similarly formatted to something like Charade, where that is like on a blank background, it's just a guy playing charades, but nobody seems to get it. And it's just like, this is a very similar style to those, but this is much, much better than either of those, because I think this one is actually funny. Which, you know, maybe it's just my stupid sense of humor, but I just am endlessly entertained by the way this guy's head turns into different things. And I think that was the same thing with The Great Cognito. However, they added a guy telling jokes in that one, and that wasn't funny. So with just this weird-ass song and the way the animation's moving around, it's perfect. It is just the simplest form of comedy. It is beautiful and horrific in equal measure. I adore this one so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even like for how like terrifying the visuals are, they are genuinely like very impressive for like, cause like the thing that I'm always sort of impressed with like 2D animation is like when, you know, you're taking a literal 2D image and being able to add actual dimension to it somehow, cause like for as crazy as the things that happen with this lad's face, they still keep that dimension like going throughout the whole thing, and it makes it equal parts terrifying, but I just also could not look away from it at the same time, and I find it very impressive. I just have to wonder why they made him look like Richard Nixon. At least to me.
Honestly, well, while you say Richard Nixon, since I watched Sunday in New York recently, I just think it's 1980s New York mayor Ed Koch.
That's his name?
I think so. I might be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure his name's Ed Koch.
I hope his name is Ed Koch, because that's great.
Koch, by the way.
Well, that won't stop me from imagining the funny word. But
oh wait, on his Wikipedia page it says it's pronounced Koch.
Koch.
And it's like it.
Caught these balls.
I haven't
in
seen
your
this
mouth.
before where it has like the IPA spelling, but then it just spells it out in like English lettering, Koch, just to make sure people know that it's not cock.
Just to clarify, it's not cock. It's catch if said by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Koch me if you can.
Catch me if you can.
God.
I work with Spielberg.
Anyway, but yes, the guy has a funny face and it transforms into other funny faces, and it's very funny to watch. I also think the song in this is really, really helpful to it because it adds this unsettling vibe to the whole thing. Where, like the way the song is clearly distorted and it's so eerie and dreamy. It feels like it's from like a David Lynch thing, like Twin Peaks. Like you would see someone sing it on Twin Peaks.
Like it would be like a song that plays in Twin Peaks by a background character that no one ever addresses. And also the thing I think that adds that extra layer of like just unsettlingness is that it's a performance of a song that the face does not match to something in a way where it's like say you're singing like, you know, like a happy song or whatever, but like your face is just like utterly depressed. It has that feeling to it because like his face is all just like scrunched up and like hard to see, but then the song is like this very like beautiful, like kind of like jazzy sort of feel to it. It's just like these things do not connect mentally.
It's a lovely ballad. And I wish it had life outside of this film, but maybe people were just too creeped out by the film to ever use it again.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you have to do is just not like watch the footage, just listen to it.
But then again, like I was saying, it is just kind of an eerie song, at least the way it's being sung here. Like maybe if you sung it like a normal person, it would be better.
Yeah, maybe Bill Plimpton has that like unaltered like take somewhere. Who knows? Yeah. Bill Plimpton release the unedited cut of the Your Face song.
I always think it's funny whenever I yell at random people through the podcast. It's just like I remember when we were recording the Frank film episode, I directly called out Frank Morris because my guest being was just shitting on him so relentlessly.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like it's funny just to imagine that people are out there listening, and it's like like anyone could be listening. Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's like I'm just recording this in my friend's house, but when this gets posted, and anything can happen.
Yeah, like maybe Bill Plimpton will listen to this and retroactively decide to not release the song.
Retroactively, not. He goes back in time with the dial of destiny.
Yeah.
and has Archimedes tell himself not to release the song.
Yeah, it's like, we must never make this short ever again, so we don't have a podcast dedicated to it, partially.
Yes, it's...
Be the change you want to be in the world.
Oh my god, this is a fun episode. I really like what we're doing here.
Yeah, the thing is that that's nice is that we have a very solid selection this year.
Yeah, this is just a really good 3 films, but one must come out on top. So let's get to the rankings. Yes. So now that we've gone through and talked about the 3 nominees, let's rank them all. Luke, start us off with your number 3.
My number 3 would have to be George and Rosemary.
Say it clearly.
George and Rosemary.
George and Rosemary is your number 3. Want to elaborate on that?
Yes. As fun and enjoyable as it is, I do have to say it has the most dead time, not in the sense of like it's the slowest pace, but just the most like flat at times for me. But not to say that it's not good, but more so just in terms of the other 2, there's more that I can enjoy more thoroughly. But I do enjoy some bits of it quite a bit, especially the bit with the Girl Scout. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. We didn't even mention her.
Yeah.
It's just like knocks on the door and George angrily goes to it as like, want to buy some Girl Scouts, mister?
Yeah.
And she's just like... And she said it in a very mean tone too.
Yeah, like she doesn't want to even be there.
Yeah, or she's like pissed that like she knows he's gonna not buy any or whatever.
Yeah, that was a good bit. I like that bit.
George and Rosemary is also my number 3. Which like you were saying, it's not the fact that this film isn't that good or anything. It is great. It is funny. But it's also just not as good as the other two. We were saying we have a really solid lineup, and the other two films are just much better. So, Luke, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is Your Face.
My face?
Yes, Your Face.
Oh!
It's number 2.
You saying my face is a piece of shit?
Yeah,
I am a piece of shit, though.
I'm the angry video game nerd. I have Your Face at number 2 because it's sort of like hard to like kind of like sort the differences of like this and The Man Who Planted a Tree, because like one of these is just like a goofy little 3-minute thing, and the other is like a 30-minute like emotional like kind of like epic in a weird way. So it's like it feels like unfair to even like rank, but I'd say number 2 just because it is incredibly visually impressive and very, very funny, but also I don't want to ever see that again.
So for my number 2, it is The Man Who Planted Trees, which, yes, it is gorgeous. Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it has this very emotional story about environmentalism and all of that. It does drag a little bit, I want to say. It's like, even though my opinion on it has improved so much. It used to be my number 3 in this lineup. It's still, I think it could lose 5 minutes. I think
Understandable.
But yeah, it's still amazing. It's still great. It just can't compete with Your Face.
My face?
Your Face!
Oh my god, my face!
Okay.
It can't compete with my face.
Okay, so yeah, tell me why Man Who Planted Trees is your number 1.
Well, for, it's the visuals, and even though I can definitely understand the pacing is quite a bit slow even for what it is trying to attempt. I don't know. I'm a shill for slow cinema, so like, I'm kind of biased in that regard, I guess. But also it's because I don't know. It's one of those few things where like the phrase is like every frame of this film is a painting, and it's like the most pretentious thing you've ever heard in your life. Well, I feel like with this one, I feel like that's fairly accurate.
Yeah, it's like with a lot of animated films, it's like every frame is literally a painting. Like,
yeah,
it's literally made with oil paints or whatever.
Yeah,
which maybe this film is. I still don't know. Like, what
you know what? I would believe that if that were the case, but like for me, like yeah, it's something where like, I don't know, it just has like a lot of elements that appeal to me, not so much just like the environmental message, but just like the pacing, the atmosphere, just especially the atmosphere. And also I forgot to mention this too, but like just loveliest Christopher Plummer narration ever.
Oh yeah, like we watched the English version, of course, because we hate the French.
Yeah, fuck the French. Actually, there was a bit in your synopsis of the film where you said, "Unfortunately, he was in France."
Yeah,
and I was trying my hard not to try to laugh.
Yeah, if there's anything I will do on podcasts, whether it's one I host or other people's, I will try my best to talk bad about the French because I hate them.
Fair.
But yeah, going back to that, it's just like. When it started the film, it's just like, I was like, oh, this is like this otherworldly environment. It's just like this random desert that like these characters find themselves in. But then it's like, it introduces World War I and stuff. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is the real world? Oh, okay. And then it's like, from context clues, you figure out, oh, he's in France. That's disappointing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, man, I thought this would be a good movie.
Yeah, it's okay. I think the film would also work better if it was just like this undefined place.
Yeah, like
it's more of a parable that way.
Yeah, and even with the war, it doesn't even necessarily have to specifically be like World War I or World War II. It's sort of like Christopher Plummer could be like, and then a war started, and then like from there, just
then
like
it was the war.
Then the war never changes.
The war came to the Man Who Planted Trees.
Yes, the land of the trees, not totally
the truffula trees.
What if actually in reality this whole like universe takes place in like The Sims?
It's the Lorax.
Or the Lorax too.
Honestly, like you could just make this the Lorax. Like this is like where like the Lorax himself is like growing all the truffula trees or whatever.
Yeah. It's just like a very just depressed looking, very much like more human looking man with a bunch of orange fur.
I mean, like, the shepherd does have, like, this really big bushy
Yeah,
tail,
like,
too.
he does, like, that's actually
He
true.
could be Lorax.
Like, this is basically like an art house Lorax.
Yeah, it's like when the shepherd dies, he doesn't die, he just turns into the Lorax.
Yeah. No, I was thinking instead of dying, he pulls his pants up and then he, like, flies away.
God. Oh, that movie. Oh, my God.
Man. Imagine if, like, you watched this and then the 2012 Lorax movie back to back. That'd be
Just
like...
imagine it.
That would be like looking at like the old Jesus paintings and then looking at the Jesus Christ Restoration painting, like back to back.
Yeah. It'd be like looking at, like, let's say the Mona Lisa or something, then looking at Sonic fetish art.
Yeah.
Or I guess it should be one slur fetish art.
I was gonna say one slur fetish art. That's a more. Listen, at least there's a bit more taste in the Sonic fan area than there is in the one slur fan area.
Okay.
Debatable, but you know.
I would like dive into that, but there was a previous episode where I mentioned Fur Affinity at one point, and my guess was like, what do you mean by that? Why do you know the website? I don't want to do that to you.
It just became like, it turned from a podcast episode into a questioning seminar.
It turned into interrogation. It's like, I'm not a furry, please.
Why do you know this?
I just grew up on the internet. I'm intensely online.
I just know things, okay? Shut up.
I drink Dr. Pepper and I know things. My favorite Game of Thrones quote. Yeah, not that you would know, because you haven't seen Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, I haven't. As we've established as you came here that I know literally nothing about Game of Thrones, but everyone in my family does, so I feel like the outcast.
Yeah, let's get that out, that Game of Thrones trivia game. Let's see how much you know.
Cool. Listen, I'm not into embarrassment fetish, okay?
Shut up. Anyway, my number one is your face.
My face?
Your face.
Hey.
We made that joke 3 times now. I thought you were gonna make it when I first introduced you to talk about the film, but you didn't. And that surprised me. But now we've done it 3 times during this ranking section.
Well, because you were giving your proper introduction, I didn't want to be unprofessional.
You think this is professional?
Listen, I'm professional within the areas that it requires it most. Listen, because when you're doing your introduction, you're not being like, this fucking movie is about some bullshit that happened 20 years ago.
I mean, I kind of am sometimes. When I with the France line, I try to make jokes sometimes.
Well, you could interpret that line though, because being in France in the 1940s does kind of suck shit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, being in France nowadays sucks shit.
That too, but
being
besides,
in France at any time sucks shit.
Man, imagine being French.
I'm so glad I don't have French friends. Which first off, why would I? But also even if I did on accident, I would not. And they happen to listen to my podcast episodes. It's just I just constantly talk shit about their country. It might make them not want to be my friend anymore.
Listen, French friends are just 2 letters away from French fries.
Okay.
Anywho.
What is going on?
I don't know.
Anyway, your face. Don't say it. I liked it. It was really good. It might not be the 30-minute epic that A Man Who Planted Trees was, but it's a silly guy and his face is turning at other things, and it's really funny. Yeah. It's really funny. It's also just gorgeously animated too. Bill Plimpton has such a unique, distinct style that I just really adore. If y'all haven't seen his film Cheatin', amazing film. It's a film that it looks ugly. The character design is ugly, but it's an intentional way, and it's so ugly it's beautiful in a sense. It's in the way that it's so very purposeful that I love it, and it's just a great emotional movie. But yeah, Bill Plimpton, I love him. I love your face. I love this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is also when you compare it to Man Who Planted Trees, there's much more brevity to it because with a previous short film that's not on this list but we did watch, there is a sense of there's just one joke, but it's 9 minutes long and then it stops being funny after a while. Whereas this one is here's 3 minutes and a funny thing, and then it's just like, and that's all you need, and it's like perfect.
Yeah.
That's all you really need.
Yeah, it's always nice when there's nominees that do that. Stuff like The Critic, where it's just like it lasts exactly as long as it needs to. For you, Luke, and for those of you who haven't seen The Critic, it's just Mel Brooks talking over a like this intentionally like artsy fartsy short film that's meant to be interpretive. He's just like talking about like what's this shit? Like what does that mean? Bozo dubbed over.
I'm not even supposed to watch this.
I'm not even supposed to be.
God, that sounds really funny. I should check that out too.
We might. So Paradise and The Critic. I'm just gonna show you a bunch of animated short nominees and see what you think.
No.
Although we might also need to head to a screening of Boogie Nights soon, like in an hour or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I shouldn't even mention that. But anyway, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to say, or anything you'd like to promote, Luke?
In terms of promotion, I mean, I don't even think I could promote my Twitter anymore because this will be a time capsule, debatably. But if you find my Twitter, which is Werner_Bertzog, you can probably find some short films that I edited that I put some good time into. And other than that, also Letterbox, Luke with a question mark next to it. Read my stupid piece of shit reviews. Read them. Do it for me. Give me them likes. Give me that internet clout, baby. But other than that, I don't have any other thoughts other than this was a very solid lineup.
Yeah, it is just a really, which I'm finding has been happening a lot in the 80s. It's just like 3 solid films that each like, they're very different, each of them, but they're all good in their own ways. They all represent like different kinds of things that the Academy likes to nominate, whether it be the very lush films, the kind of weird foreign stuff, the just weird as hell films that we don't even know why the Academy even liked them, things like that. And it's just like, yeah, it's a good lineup. Really solid films.
We love to see good animation.
Good shit. Good shit.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Luke, for coming on the show and also letting me record in your house.
Yeah.
And thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.